What is up? Happy Wednesday. Hope you guys are having a good week. Let a few more people hop on here before we get into it and get things set up for myself. Make sure audio's good. Looks like everything is good. Well, a couple of people watching, so go ahead and get into it. Interesting, all the things that are happening around regulation here in Q1 for digital assets. We'll see. We got French Hill talking about stablecoin regulation, and pretty confident that we might see that here in Q1. You've got, John Deaton running against Senator Warren for the Senate spot, or the Senate seat. I'm excited to see that, and I'm glad John's doing it. I don't think, I don't know, maybe he'll surprise me and win, but I think it's going to incite some questions for Senator Warren and bring up some topics that she may have skated or skirted if he hadn't been running against her in that position or for that position. So kudos to John for stepping up to the bat and at least fighting the good fight. He's done that from the beginning. The XRP army is still indebted to him for putting together what he did and filing the amicus brief on behalf of 75,000 XRP holders. Getting all of those names in the lawsuit for Ripple. He's a good guy. I'm glad he's on our team. This just wasn't what he was doing. He's a mesothelioma lawyer. But he's sharp. He's come into vogue, and like I said, I'm glad that he's stepping up to bat to take it to Senator Warren. And I think that's indicative of like the whole space, right? So I don't know if you guys saw the tweets by Jimmy Valley. Love him or hate him. He wants to propose some regulation for basically what it was required to be an accredited investor. There was a proposed discussion last year around, a test that would allow people to qualify as an accredited investor, and versus just having net worth requirements or having to pass the 65. I love that. I'm hopeful that passes. I think that people that are educated and understand how to allocate capital appropriately should have the capability to put that capital to work where it's meaningful. If you're just a retail investor, you're stuck with retail investments, which haven't played out. If you're in it for the long haul, you make a lot of money in the stock market, but asymmetric bets exist in private equity and other riskier investments, and they are riskier. But if you understand how to do due diligence on deals, then you can really win big. We have a workshop for our mastermind this Friday here in Dallas for those that are going to be here for the event. If you are in the mastermind up here, there it is, join. Then you'll know where that's at, and you can come to the workshop where we're going to go over all the due diligence around private equity investments, how to break that down, financial statements, balance sheet, cash flow, who's on the team, political, ESG, all the different things that you might look at when you're dissecting an investment in private equity. If Jimmy gets his way and he has some type of say in the test, maybe I can be involved with that. We'll see. I just texted him a little bit earlier. Anyway, yeah, so he's excited. Safe harbor rule. I got to talk to Hester Pierce a few weeks ago at the inaugural USA UAE Alliance meeting there at Georgetown, and she's open to suggestions on things from our group and from others. So hopefully, over the next couple years, a lot of things change in the regulation for digital assets in particular, and around securities and accredited investors. It's not, well, I mean, it could happen all at once. There could just be sweeping changes. Everything is happens slowly, then immediately changes when it's needed. So we'll see. Monarchy says Hester's compromised. You know, um, unless you've talked to these people in person and you have direct access to stuff, I hate people that just make assumptions and like say things off the cuff, because you don't know. You've never met these people. You never talked to them. You don't know who's compromised and who's not. And there's not really any compromised. Like, so. Anyway, yeah, I'm hopeful that we do get some real regulation around this stuff, and I think that we're progressing toward that. I think we might be in for one more problem reaction solution when it's related to crypto. We'll see if that pans out or not. You know, maybe they just let it ride. Talked about, you know, the T+2 settlement for the Bitcoin ETFs and the possible problems that could cause. But let's see here. That's kind of what I wanted to get into. If you guys have questions around your regulation or even some ideas, I'm definitely open for that. You know, if you have some good constructive criticism for like safe harbor rule, maybe some deeper discussion around what you guys think legislation should look like for digital assets, I would love to engage in that capacity and have those conversations here in an open forum. So run it up on that side. If you have Jake just called the black swan in February. It won't be in February. I don't think it'll be in February. I'm not saying it won't be in Q1, but I don't think February. We'll see here. So a couple good questions. I'm gonna go back to these. So Scott Carroll's asked, have you seen or heard anything that regulations are coming in Q1 of this year? Actually, yes. Yeah. So I mentioned before, French Hill, who we had the pleasure of seeing in person in Arkansas last year when we went to the Republican Summit there. Max and I, he's mentioned that he believes that stablecoin regulation will come in Q1 of 2024. So, you know, you take everything with a grain of salt. I don't have a crystal ball, but if we did see some, you know, stablecoin problems here in Q1, I would think that they've got the bill on the floor. I think it's up for vote in some capacity, either in the Senate. I don't think it's passed the Senate to go to the House yet. So, but I think they could run that through. There are a couple stipulations in there that are pretty interesting. It gives full clarity to XRP and XLM as stablecoins or bridge currencies. And then it also provides a moat for 2 years for anybody that's already issued a stablecoin. There wouldn't be any new players with the capability to issue a stablecoin that met the regulations for 2 years. So you've seen PayPal, you've seen Amazon, you've seen a lot of people issue stablecoins over the last 6 months here. Kind of interesting to me. So we'll see. I'm hopeful it's sooner than later. Brian, it's a good question. Jimmy's down there in Houston, and we might do a meetup down south. Might be going to Consensus this year, and so if you're part of the mastermind group, you'll definitely get filled in on all that, and have the capability to come to, you know, wherever we have the meetings. But yeah, Houston would be good. There's some good spots in Houston. So, or Austin, you know, it'll be one of the two probably that we have something this year. We got, still laughing at the black swan in February. Appreciate you, Sly. There's a lot of good people in the comments. Appreciate y'all with kind words. Sly says, I'm Canadian. If I were to contact the family office and live abroad, would you still be able to help? Yes, yeah, we work with international clients. We custody international clients under our account here domestically with Standard Custody and Trust, who was just acquired by Ripple, which is cool. So we're a partnership away, kind of working directly with them. We'll see how that relationship grows. Excited to, build that out. Hopefully the wealth management side of their business, we can kind of foster some things there. But yeah, if you're Canadian, we do have a professional up there that we partner with, Aaron Grinhaus. If you want to check him out, happy to share his information with you. And he's the go-to guy. He's on the blockchain council there in Canada, and has all the connections similar to myself here in the US to be able to work with you in any capacity you need. So estate planning, he does a lot of stuff offshore down in the Caymans for Canadians to mitigate any tax implications, sets up trusts down there. And then he also has CPAs and a few other contacts there in Canada that could be helpful for you. So again, multiple Canadians in the mastermind. Would love to have you there. We talk about all those things. The other benefit that you have being Canadian is there's no gift tax. You can gift until your heart's content. So even if you wait till post liquidity event to get things set up, should still be okay. Trill Shay says, do you see stablecoin regulations the reason Bitcoin rise? I would think the opposite on that. We'll see. You know, I don't have a crystal ball. I think if we got stablecoin regulation, it would have significant impacts for Bitcoin and Tether. So maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong. It's yet to be seen. Let's see here. Yeah, appreciate you, Scott. He says, what World Bank meant when they're stating, yeah, the World Bank, the UN, the IMF, FinCEN, you know, everybody's designated XRP a currency at this point, except for the SEC and the US government. So, Ripple has their virtual asset money transmitter licenses in the Middle East, at Singapore and Japan. I'd speculate even other places. They just also in December got Ireland, so they can support the broader EU and use XRP to settle transactions. So, you know, the rest of the world's pretty much decided, and we're the last on the docket here in the US. This is good. TK says, if stablecoin regulation is passed, would that mean the UST would be audited or reveal that they likely don't have the reserves, therefore impacting BTC? You know, they already had an audit. I think it was like the 12th or 13th best audit firm in the US that went in and checked their financials, and they said they passed. They do have a list of what their backing's supposed to be. They're on their website. It's supposed to be like 75% US Treasuries. They are the 6th largest holder of US Treasuries at this point also. I don't think that they would report that if that was false. So maybe there's some impact on US Treasuries that causes some implications. Maybe, you know, whatever they are holding aside from US Treasuries, there's some liabilities or exposure there. You know, I think that 3-4 years ago, they probably did have some sketchy stuff. But I think they've kind of tried to shore it up since then. And, but I don't know. I just have this weird feeling like you don't make a symbol that looks like an atomic bomb for no reason. And maybe, you know, again, I don't have a crystal ball, but we'll see. Let's see here. This is a good one. Vibra Finance says, Jake, do you think we will follow Europe's DeFi rules? Once I saw A16 working with the committee drafting them, I can't see it not being extremely favorable. Yeah, so when I got to listen to Hester Pierce discuss things at Georgetown a few weeks ago, they've let everybody kind of take the lead globally, and while we've sat back, and they've seen the mistakes that have been made in other jurisdictions as well. People are upset that we haven't moved quickly to get things instated. But I think, you know, if you move quick, sometimes you break stuff. I'm guilty of that. I'd rather be fast and break a few things and fix it later on. But if you are the global reserve currency and you have the capability to sit back and let others move, you know, and then figure out how to make sure you get it right. I think that's been echoed by multiple regulators, you know, and I think we're at the point where, you know, we've given it a decade, longer than a decade. I think we can get it right at this point. So, yeah, I would agree with you. I would think that our DeFi rules will be similar to Europe's, and I'm hopeful that staking, you know, this is my speculation, and again, grain of salt, I'm just speculating. I think anything that's proof of stake will be a security, pure proof of stake. So if you have to actually put it up in the pool and it has to leave your wallet, I think that it'll be considered a security. If you have the capability to delegate it in some capacity and hold it under your ownership, I don't think that that'll be considered a security. I think that that'll be considered something else, and likely the way that the regulation's written for you, for the way that financial institutions and other people have to participate. And that alludes more to the custody rule that was proposed by the SEC about this time last year. Some of the things just really aren't feasible until financial products have been tokenized, which is something else that I see on the horizon, coming quickly after regulations come in. So we need custody, we need regulations, and we need digital identity. Custody's pretty much figured out at this point. We've got a lot of players that are, I would say, professional and figured that side of things out. You've got digital identity as an amendment on the XRPL that's up for vote. So that'll invoke KYC, AML compliance directly in the protocol, which, again, we help people establish entities, whether that's an LLC or a trust or C corporation or, international entities as well, that can hold your digital assets. So if you do have KYC, AML requirements, and let's say, you're required to register a wallet under something, if you had that in your personal name and you held a lot of digital assets, that's a public ledger that you're going to be, able to be found on. Most people that I know that have significant wealth want to remain kind of under the radar, and not draw attention to themselves or become a target for those trying to hack them or take their stuff. So another reason that you might want to go ahead and get your assets into an LLC or a trust prior to the liquidity event and prior to digital identity going live on the networks, and being invoked. And that's just going to happen. I don't know that I think that anything that's a public ledger, you'll probably have to register on. You already see this with the exchanges. They're listing the wallets that are associated with exchanges and specific individuals. If you go to the XRP scan, you can type stuff in and find stuff. Just like Chris Larson, right, and his wallet, and it got hacked. A target, large amounts of crypto sitting in a specific wallet, especially as quantum computers and other things come online. Probably a good idea to have the concealed, and at least remain somewhat anonymous by using an entity for that reason. So again, Digital Ascension Group, digitalfamilyoffice.io. If you guys are interested in that, we're happy to help you set those things up. Let's see here. I live in Houston. I am about to schedule a half an hour session for financial advice. So this is important here, Jason. I don't give financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor. I am counsel or coach, right? So I'm not licensed. I don't hold any certifications. I'm not bound by any federal agencies. I partner with all of the professionals that are, and I sit as an advisor on the board of the families that I work with. So don't specifically give financial advice. I'm more of like the advisors give you options and I help you work through those things. And I also just give you options and you can come to your own decisions based on the conversation. Just, walk you through the possible outcomes on stuff and you get to make the final call. I don't allocate capital. We have an RIA and I have a CIO and we do have the capability to do that, but I myself don't participate in that business. I just, counsel my clients and make sure that the professionals that I work with are operating with the utmost integrity and doing what's in the best interest of the client. So, and at any time, if that's not the case, then I remove that person and we bring somebody else in that is going to do that for the people that I work with. So, anyway, just want to make that clarification. But yeah, would love to talk to you. Again, digitalfamilyoffice.io. If you want to book a session, my team or myself will meet with you and we can run things down. Yeah, there's a lot going on in Canada up there. Oh, this is good. Atlantic Living says, Jake, with all the negativity surrounding ETH, why does it perform so well? I.e., previous improper behavior with the U.S. government, excessive high fees, not portrayed favorable in XRP documentary. I think ETH will have its day. I don't know when that'll be. Until the constraints change, it is the second largest crypto by market cap, and it will continue to follow Bitcoin in the cycles. And until there's regulations or a lawsuit or any type of actual substantial evidence brought against them, things will continue to persist in the manner that they have for the last decade. And you can like that or you can be upset about it. It doesn't matter. It's still going to happen. It's not my favorite thing. I have clients that hold a lot of ETH. I have clients that hold a lot of Bitcoin. And, it's not my cup of tea, but I've been wrong for 15 years now about Bitcoin. I've held Bitcoin at times. I've made money on Bitcoin. Same thing. I actually didn't ever buy any ETH, to be honest. I did buy some Bitcoin early on, and I got into a lot of the altcoins in 20 and 21 and did pretty well. But ETH, well, I'll take that back. I've held ETH at specific times in order to be able to buy other tokens. So like when XDC first launched, you had to send your ETH to this obscure wallet in order to swap it for the XDC. It was XDCE, and then it became XDCC or D, and you had to do the exchange, and then it was listed on all the exchanges, and then it went crazy. When I got in, it was like 0.03 of a penny. I wish I had bought more. I wish I'd held it longer. But those are the times when I've held ETH. When I've had to use MetaMask or convert to something else. And that's what it is, right? So that's why ETH, to answer your question here specifically, there's so many things that have been built out on top of Ethereum that require Ethereum to be able to transact in order to get into and use. It'll continue to persist until those things are migrated somewhere else, like the XRP ledger with the EVM sidechain, or some of these other applications that are EVM compatible. There's a lot of people that see where the puck is going. It's just not there yet, right? So if you're there before the puck, then you're probably going to do pretty well. But until it gets there, you're going to have to watch it. So I guess the answer. Let's see here. That's a good one. Mr. McDuck says, Jake, if we own XRP tokens and we set up a trust, with the tokens in the trust, could we possibly set up our own private ledger? If you have the capability to work on the XRPL, you could set up a side chain and transact. You could issue tokens on that network. Like there's plenty of people that have projects on different side chains or have issued assets on the XRPL. It's a public network. You can do whatever you want on it if you're a developer and you have the capability. So, yeah, you could potentially do that. I don't know what advantages it would give you. You're not going to be able to hide your XRP on the public ledger, moving it to a private ledger, if that's what you're thinking. It doesn't work that way. You could, burn your XRP for Zahao if you wanted to do that, but I wouldn't do that personally. Just my own opinion. But yeah, you can't, it's not like you can move XRP off the public network and hide it somewhere. It's the native asset to that protocol, and it will only exist on that network unless it's wrapped and issued somewhere else. And then it would still be visible on that network. You would just have a representation of value somewhere else. So, yeah. Lots of good questions in here. I'm gonna have, Atlantic. I'm so busy with everything else I have going on. I still haven't had the time to research Caspa. Been looking at Plugin, which is an Oracle on XDC's network. I've been looking at Aqua, which is a liquidity pool token for XLM. Protocol 20 just went live this week with the Sorben smart contracts. Did a video about that. So I'm trying to get into these other networks and do some research when I have time. I've got 4 different companies that I deal with on a daily basis, and I have really good people that work with me. Really blessed to have good people in my life that work at the companies with me and are on the journey, but it still requires a lot of my time. And so I don't get, a couple years ago, I had lots of free time to be able to just dive into these projects and kind of consume things. I spent probably 5 to 6 hours a day just ingesting all of this data and information and learning. And I really just, unfortunately, don't have the time to do that now. But I'll put CASPA on my list, and hopefully we can get a video out about that. And if I do that, then I'll have to go research it. So I'll give me a couple weeks, but I'll try to get that one out for you. Who else skipped a heartbeat when Brad tweeted XRP and ETF in the same sentence? We'll see if there was any validity to the iShares XRP ETF that was supposedly faked back in November last year. Obviously, it's been removed. It's been taken down. They said that the DOJ was contacted. But here's the deal with that. The people that have to sign off on that, for them to go through and be able to fake it, is highly unlikely. There's only ever been one other ETF that was for crypto that was faked. I think that was like 2017 or 18. And immediately, the company, Grayscale, was who it was faked for. Not BlackRock. And Barry Silbert immediately came out and said that they did not file it. And then the founder and CEO of the network that had the token also came out immediately and said that it was not real. Neither of those things happened for that ETF in November last year for BlackRock and XRP. You had Bloomberg come out and basically say that they called and that it was false, and then the DOJ was contacted, but there was no resolution. Like, it was just swept under the rug, off the radar. Everybody forgot about it. I haven't forgot about it. Odd to me, again, to know who has to sign off on that and who has to approve it and the notarizations that have to take place. Extremely unlikely that somebody would be able to fake that for BlackRock. But again, that's another one of those things I'm just skeptical of. It makes me wrinkle my brow and wonder what's going on. So, if there was an XRP ETF and it came to market, which we already do have one, just so you're aware, there is an XRP ETF for anybody that wants to invest in that. It already exists. I'll try to find the ticker and put it up. Maybe I'll do a video about it, and just that'd be a good video. XRP. Like I said, it already exists. It's not a huge name behind it, but there is one out there if you just want to hold that. I'm sure it'll probably do pretty good if we see some price appreciation. It also helps us. So I'll talk about this a little bit. The PPLI that we use is private placement life insurance, and there's a specific way that things have to be invested inside that policy. You can't hold just one asset. So you can fund the policy with an asset, then you got to sell some and move some stuff around. But let's say you just wanted to use Bitcoin or XRP or Ethereum or whatever, let's say. If you do have an ETF, that provides another vertical that has the exposure to the same asset. So if you wanted to, like Bitcoin, you could fund it with Bitcoin and then use futures, the ETF, and a few other things. Like we could figure out how to just have completely Bitcoin exposure inside of a PPLI policy, and our partners can do that. So I'm hopeful we'll have the same type of thing for XRP if things continue to progress in that direction. And we already have an ETF for XRP, but if BlackRock and these others do list it inside of an ETF, and you won't be able to use that the same way as the asset, right? So you won't be able to participate in liquidity pools. However, the underlying fund might be able to do that and pay yield or return on it. So you've got JP Morgan has an XRP fund also, supposed to pay like 7.5%. pref on that deal. Anyway, yeah. So there's a couple different ways we can basically maintain a full exposure to the same asset. We just have to use some creative financial products to do so. Neurotic Nurse, thanks for joining. Good to see you. Lots of good people here in the chat. Jason says coach is good also. Yeah, it's a language thing. Advisor, coach, just want to make sure that I'm okay with walking in the gray area. I just want to make sure I stay on the right side of the line, and I don't want conflicts of interest. I don't want to do anything that's not within compliance. I want to stay above board. So, yeah, we'll talk about this a little bit. So I did have the pleasure of being featured in XRP Unleashed. Chris and his crew did come here to Dallas, and we shot that. I think I was like maybe the third person that they interviewed, and they've gone on to interview, Deaton and Jimmy Valley. They had Zach before me. I think Lewis and Molly, Brad, DAI, a lot of the people that have been involved for a long time. I don't know how I ended up in that category of people. Still feels surreal a lot of the time. I remember just a few years ago, I watched all these people on YouTube on a regular basis. I'm sure just like everybody here in the chat. And somehow I know them, and, they want to talk to me, which is cool. But yeah, I just really blessed and grateful to be able to participate in that. And I think that that's going to be a big splash later this year when it's released on Netflix and these other, what is Netflix? Streaming channels. I think that, a lot of people are going to be like, wow, how did you guys know? Or how were you able to put up with all the FUD and sit around for 5 or 6 years waiting on that one thing to play out, yeah, it's going to be really cool. I'm excited to be a part of it. Yeah, but yes, I was actually again, the second or third person that they interviewed. So thank you for the kind words. Is it Hitler? M. Hitler? Let's see here. Kathleen, how are you, ma'am? Hope you're doing well. Any idea I'll just give you guys. So I talked to MG Stover Tuesday this week, and I'm sure PolySign will come out with a public statement. So I'll just say that, but I'll give you guys what I know here on the live, because you're nice enough to tune in. There'll be more to this. Again, if you're in the mastermind group, we can talk a little bit more openly about things than I can in a public forum. But that's, yeah. So it seems like MG Stover was traded over to Boathouse with everything that played out. And obviously we've got the acquisition of standard custody by Ripple. I don't know, what the amount was that they were acquired for. They didn't disclose that. And that's still not finalized. The NYDFS has to approve that acquisition because that's who the trust bank is registered with there in New York. But my expectation is, Ripple's an above board company. They've obviously won and all the things that mattered with the SEC in the lawsuit. And so I think that should pass through. We are on hold for onboarding people until everything is completely done with them. And so if you do want to hold your digital assets there, more than happy to, help you do that. Again, Digital Ascension Group, we're the only family office or wealth manager that has an account with them that allows access to that. You would normally have to have somewhere between 3 and 5 million in digital assets just to hold assets with standard custody. But we bring that down to $100,000 in assets that they hold. So that's Bitcoin, Ethereum, XRP, Solana, Matic, Chainlink, Avalanche, and then a bunch of DeFi protocols. And we're looking at some other custodians as well. Probably end up going to Coinbase, which they just have a full variety of everything. I don't know that I trust them as much as I trust other people. but they are a publicly traded company, and so they're probably not going to go anywhere. And obviously, if all the ETFs are custodied there, what are you going to do? Henry Lou, thank you for the $10 chat here. Let me finish with Kathleen, and then I'll run this down. Appreciate you being on the chat. So I'll get back to the question. I rambled on there about a bunch of different stuff. Private equity and PolySign. So they no longer own those underlying companies. However, and I've not heard anybody discuss this, so y'all get the goods. They still own AtomicNet, which is, in my opinion, the most valuable thing that they had. The IP for that, I didn't sign any NDAs with them, so I'm going to talk about it. They said that I could, and I chose not to. So I could know other things, but I don't. When I originally heard Jack talk about AtomicNet, I had never heard about it before, and the first time was on about this time last year when he had a fireside chat with Joe at Link2, and I immediately went to the internet trying to figure out, what AtomicNet was and what it was going to do, and I found a patent. And I still have the patent number. If you guys want to join the mastermind and ping me, I'm happy to share it with you. But it's an abandoned patent, so anybody can use it. But it's referred to by 355 other actual patents. And that means it's incorporated in those patents. And those patents were filed by people like, and Dozo, thank you, Kelly. Those patents were filed by Bank of America, BNY Mellon, a lot of them by USAA. I did not realize how involved in digital assets USAA was until I saw this list of patents that they had filed referencing, what I believe to be AtomicNet. A ton of other ones. No, almost any financial, Wells Fargo, Goldman Sachs, Ripple themselves also referred to this patent multiple times with patents that they had filed. So, and apparently that's not the only patent. Apparently there's more patents that make up AtomicNet than that. So anyway, I think you're going to be fine with the private equity. That was a long way to say this, but I think you're going to be just fine with the private equity there in PolySign. And, I think a tuck-in acquisition for them is likely still in the cards. Let's see here. Henry Lou, appreciate you again, brother. Look forward to meeting you whenever that point is. If again, we have the event here in Dallas at the end of this week for our mastermind members. If you guys want to come check it out, would love to meet you in person. Pay me an XLM has asked a good question here, and it says, "Do you know much about Codius?" So I've been in these, again, I just feel super blessed and privileged to just be in environments with people and get to hear them speak and say things that they don't say in public forums. So was at CoinAlt last year. I, again, had the pleasure of being invited by MG Stover to go to that. Super professional, well done event. It's put on by Cole Freeman and Meyer, which is one of the most prestigious law firms that deals with digital assets. KPMG, MG Stover, PolySign, Standard Custody, Anchorage. There was a lot of the high level, what I consider premium firms dealing with digital assets there at the event. And they had Brad and Jack as the keynote. And Brad talked about when he first came to Ripple. And I've heard him tell the story before. He was CEO at Yahoo and then came to Ripple later on after he was driving Uber. And when he said he got to Ripple, they were working on three things. And this is again, never had heard this anywhere else. He said they were working on global ID, which they've separated from. That's no longer their project. We've talked to them. They're completely separate. They're developing an ID solution that's agnostic, not specific to the XRPL. So Global ID, Codius, which was a smart contract platform, similar to like Evernode, but more geared toward financial products and derivatives. And then you also have international settlement of payments. And Brad basically told them, he wrote the Peanut Butter Manifesto while he was at Yahoo and said, if you spread yourself too thin trying to do too many different things, then you're never good at anything and you're just spread too thin. So you need to go deep on one thing. And so that's why they chose international settlement for payments, and they kind of shelved Codius and the identity solution that they were working on at the time with Global ID. And like I said, Global ID is separated off. Codius does have a website. You can look it up. They say to expect dragons. 2024 is the year of the dragon in the Chinese calendar. Is there a correlation? Maybe, maybe not. We're sure going to find out. But that's what Codius is. It's a layer 2 on top of the XRPL that facilitates a robust framework and capabilities for derivatives and other financial products at scale. And so we'll have to see, what comes about if they do launch that. Like, again, I don't know what else expect dragons could mean. On their website it says it's currently in beta. So I know that it's been kept under wraps and there's not a whole lot of people that have talked about it. Cobalt is another one that's supposed to be a layer 2 that allows for settlement that's faster and more scalable on the XRPL. It's similar to like a Matic or a Polygon. It batches transactions and has an interstate connector, and you both can't go down, and it allows for like offline transactions and some other stuff. So, there's this technology has been built out. There's people that have been working on things for a long time. And so I'm excited to see some of them come to the forefront and be used. But we're, again, waiting on regulation, and you got to have those foundational pieces in place. You got to have custody, and you got to have identity before any of the other cool, sexy stuff that we want comes into vogue here. Appreciate you on the super chats tonight, guys. Dev Wood says, Jake, love your work. Don't underestimate your impact. Thank you for the kind words, man. Give me your honest opinion on XRP, XLM, and XDC, and can you help us Canadians? I sure can, on how to prepare and protect your gains when it comes time to take profits. Yeah, again, so we work with Aaron Grinhoss up there in Canada. He's our go-to guy. He's the head of the Blockchain Council there in Canada and has connections with all of the professionals that are proficient with digital assets across each one of the verticals in a family office, similar to myself here in the U.S. He does estate planning himself and primarily sets up trusts and entities down in the Cayman Islands for Canadians there. So happy to share his information. Again, that's readily available in the mastermind group if you guys want to check that out. Or you can email me if you do have any questions. If you want contacts, I'm happy to just share. I've aggregated all these people and somehow got in these rooms. And so happy to just share those. So, and again, if you want to come to the event here in Dallas, it's this week. It'll be on Saturday night, and would love to have you guys check that out if you're part of the mastermind. So, Kurt, what's going on, dog? I always wondered if Codius was the smart contract platform that controlled the release of the escrow. That's inherent to the XRPL, so it's not going to be anything to do with Codius on the escrow portion. You can time lock XRP yourself on the XRPL. I've done it. A portion of my XRP is escrowed into the future, like a large portion of my XRP is escrowed into the future, and it'll come back to me later on. I did that very early on in my journey just to make sure that if I was stupid and did things that might have, compromised things or have problems, that I wouldn't be able to screw it all up. And since then, I've done my best to make sure that I've aggregated the knowledge and professionals to make sure that wouldn't happen. but yeah, you have that capability. So if you have the XRP toolkit, you can just log in online. You can attach your wallet there, and you can use the escrow function. It's a time lock, and that's how Ripple does it with their wallets. They just have a time release that comes back, and so yeah, that's you can do that without Codius. Codius would be much more complex transactions, right? And PolySign and their blockchain that sits on top of the XRP also, they have that escrow capability built into the wallets that they have, or the vaults. So that's escrow is a big piece of this, and I'll tell you why. So like the custody rule that the SEC proposed requires that assets always be held in qualified custody when you're holding them on behalf of somebody else. So you can't send them to an exchange if you were a fund manager and swap them and then send them back to qualified custody. So with standard custody and PolySign's technology, you can escrow them in the wallet, issue a trade line onto an exchange. As long as they have an account at the same custodian, they can see that liquidity is there. They'll provide, swap, trade, do whatever you need, move the asset that's supposed to be exchanged for that into the wallet, and then atomically settle with you. So your assets are never at risk or exposed, which I think is, exactly how it should be. I don't think that, that would have prevented FTX and Celsius and Voyager and all this other stuff. So excited to see that get rolled out. A lot of good people in the chat tonight. Appreciate you. Codius is the godfather of oracles, smart oracles, highly advanced AI technology, in my opinion. Brad didn't mention anything about Oracle when he talked about it, but that doesn't mean that there's not. Again, an oracle brings data from the real world on chain, and you have to have that. I think that Flare and that launch of that, and the time series oracle, and a lot of the components that they built out, kind of pioneered some of what they're going to use with Codius and these other smart contract platforms inside chains and different things on the XRPL. But I don't know that there's an inherent oracle to Codius. Codius is more for the smart contract component, but maybe, maybe something that I don't, which is quite possible. Let's see here. Appreciate you guys running it up in the chat and hanging out with me on a Wednesday night. Kelly. So this is what actually what started the chat tonight, Kelly. Appreciate you hopping on, brother. Any thoughts on Deaton versus Warren? Is this a fight for freedom? I don't think Senator Warren is wrong about Bitcoin and its exposure on the traditional market, and that could cause problems. I think that she wants regulations. It seems like she doesn't. It seems like she completely opposes crypto and hates all of it. Okay. And that's the narrative that's put out there. I actually think she's pretty educated on the topic. And I think we're going to see that when Deaton comes in and starts to have conversations with her. I don't think that she's ignorant to crypto. I think that she actually probably understands it pretty well. And I'm hopeful that divulges some very insightful conversation and brings things to the forefront in those conversations with her in a political forum where she has to basically show her competency when it comes to digital assets. And that's what I'm looking forward to is, there's a lot of talk and people just hedge and say that all of crypto's bad and and there's securities and it's a problem. I think they just understand the broader implications for traditional markets if things are integrated and they're not ready. And we've got that. And there's an exposure there. There's problems. If you saw Bitcoin fluctuate more than 5 or 6% in a day, it's T+2 settlement for these ETFs. it's going to be bad news for them settling either direction, up or down, with Bitcoin if it moved more than that in a day. And we've seen it. We've seen it pull down 30% in 24 hours. So that's when the poop hits the fan for this deal. I'm just waiting for that to happen, and I think we're going to get some type of rejection here for Bitcoin. And I'm sketched out by the traditional markets. I would love to be wrong. I would love to see everything just continue in the euphoria and the highs for forever. But to see Bezos pull as much money off the table as he has, to see other large CEOs cashing out the same way they were pre-COVID, I mean, we're at all-time highs. It might be a good idea if, not financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor. Always consult with yours before making any investment decisions. But if I had any stock exposure right now, I would be thinking really hard about that. And I would be having conversations with my advisor currently. So that's all I'll say. Let's see here. Kevin Doherty. What's going on, brother? How are you? Living Legacy. Anything I need to do on my Uphold? Read that Uphold was automatically supporting the drop. I didn't see what the drop was. AXRP, huh? Interesting. I'm sure that they will. Uphold's been pretty good about supporting airdrops to things. I like Zum. If there's any type of airdrop associated with the XRP, that's where I like to hold stuff. If it's not at standard custody, would be there with a Tangent card. Just my 2 cents, but we'll see. Jufu Baby says the last gasp. That's what I'm thinking for a lot of this right here at the end of Q1. We'll see what shakes out. Yeah, appreciate you, Nurse. If you guys would be so kind to share, if you're finding value in this conversation and the questions here, share it with somebody else you think would find value as well. Would love to. You guys always ask great questions, so if I can provide value to anybody, that's why I do these. And if you want to share with other people or feel so inclined, would love to. I would definitely support that. So, Daryl says, do you think that the SEPA migration that was proposed back in November to March is still something to be excited about at all? People, again, earlier alluded to the fact that I'm calling a black swan. You can't call a black swan because that's the whole point of a black swan. I think there's some type of catalyst. And I think March is going to be pivotal for a lot of reasons, one of which you've mentioned here. You also have India migrating to T+0 in March. You've got other large players like Citibank, and I don't think it was Goldman. I know Citi and India both are going to T+0 in March. So does that have implications for broader crypto adoption? It has to, in my opinion. You can't have instant settlement if you're not using blockchain and some of these networks. So if they're settling T+0, that's adoption, in my opinion. And with some of the other regulations, timely rolling out, you've also got the lawsuit with Ripple supposedly ending in Phoenix. That's good. Ending in April. Just a lot of things lining up here for the end of quarter one in 2024 that I think could play out really well. Let's see here. This is good. I don't know who this person is, but they're good. Three Little Pigs, HSBC, JP Morgan, and Citi. If you know, you know. Let's see here. This is a good question by Marvin here. Subject, would it be smart to hold some assets in cold storage and some in LLC? So you don't have to do an either or. In order to move your assets into your LLC, they can be right on your cold storage device. They don't have to be on an exchange. I've made a video about this. You guys can go check it out on the YouTube channel. You're basically going to gift your wallets that hold your digital assets into the LLC. And you don't have a step up in basis. You don't have a change of time frame held because you're gifting those assets. They just stay at the same cost basis and time frame, and they move directly into the LLC. It's your capital contribution to start the business, and you're able to proceed and move forward and sell and buy more and do what you need to. Because now that wallet address, that cold storage device, ledger, Trezor, EliPal, Tangem card, whatever it is that holds your keys, is now in the LLC. So it's not an either or. You can definitely hold all of your assets on cold storage in your LLC, and I would suggest that you do so unless you have them. Which, I'll explain this too. So standard custody. If you hold stuff with us under our account in a vault that's insured up to $50 million at standard custody, it's still a cold wallet. It's just the most secure cold wallet on the planet. It's the highest grade cold wallet ever graded. Standard custody themselves has zero access, none. They can't perform transactions on your behalf. All they can do is add other people to your account if you were to pass away. And us being on the account as well provides another layer of security. We make sure that there's beneficiaries attached, and we also have another trustee that steps in and manages your assets on your behalf if you were to pass away. That's the gripe that I have a lot with the cold wallets is just to give you an example. My wife has no idea on digital assets, oblivious. If I passed away tomorrow and we didn't have our stuff there, I was worried about it. It kept me up at night for a long time because, I knew if something happened to me, if she did find them, she would just sell it off. She wouldn't know. and secondly, she probably wouldn't even be able to get to them because she doesn't know how to use the key. She doesn't know how to use the wallet. Anyway, so we provide a secondary signer, also somebody else that can make sure that people get instated on your account that they're supposed to be there. The beneficiaries get paid like they're supposed to. And it hedges the risk. So you have to have multiple signatures on your account at PolySign. Well, not PolySign anymore. Sorry. Just at standard custody. They're now owned by Ripple as soon as the acquisition goes through. But you're required to have at least 2 signatories on the account. We provide one of them. You could have an accredited investor that had 3 to 5 million in assets could go direct and set up your own account and set your wife or your spouse as the other signer on your account. The problem with that is, what if you're both in the same car or the same plane and God forbid something happens? Well, now standard custody has the right to, make sure the beneficiaries, but now what if you got kids? What if you got minors? And they're the beneficiaries on that. Do you have a trustee? Do you have somebody else to step into that position to manage your assets and make sure that things are taken care of in your best interest for your family and everybody's, still the main focus? Probably not. And so that's one of the benefits we provide in that service. But anyway, yeah. So standard custody can't perform any transactions on your behalf. We just sign off on things. We verify that it's you, make sure that you're not under duress. We'll call you. And it's still your crypto. You do whatever you want with it. We just sign as a secondary on the account. So, man, running it up in the chat tonight. Appreciate you guys. Let's see here. We got... this is a good question. Not financial advice. I'm going to start with that, okay? Completely hypothetical. I'm just, if you had 80K in the crypto market right now, fairly diversified, what's a realistic portfolio growth mid-2025? I think it really depends on what you're invested in. I'm just going to be real with you. I think by mid 2025, excuse my French, the shit coins, the meme coins, the junk that's in the environment right now, the majority of the space is gone, wiped out. We have full regulations in place. There's guidelines around things. The institutions are in. And there might be, I'm going to say somewhere between 50 and 90 cryptos and networks and protocols that last and are used in some niche aspect or maybe at a broader scale. But all of this other junk that's out there, and some of these ones that you might even think are good, could end up being junk. I'll give you an example, and I'm just going to give an example. I'm not saying if you own this or don't own this, that it's good or bad. I'm just providing an example. Okay. So don't take this, just disregard this completely. Cardano. Okay. There's a lot of people that think Cardano is going to go to the moon, that there's going to be a ton of utility and all kinds of stuff built out on it. There's been billions of dollars invested in that network with Charles Hoskinson and their team there. There's multiple projects that are being built out on that network. It seems like it has a lot of traction, but I don't know what the hell it's going to be used for. I don't know who's adopting it. I don't know. I've not seen one institutional player reference Cardano in any capacity. The custodians that I work with don't hold it. I don't know, man. But that's one point, though. Like, I think there's a ton of people in the space that believe in that project, probably have huge allocations to it. It has made a ton of money. Transparently, I made a ton of money on Cardano in 2020 and 21. And, well, hold on a second. Why aren't you working? Well, hell. Let me work on the back end here and get this figured out. But y'all can still hear me. So